Federal contracting has a software problem that nobody talks about. The market is enormous, the rules are publicly documented, and the agencies will actually tell you what they want to buy and when, but the information is scattered across a dozen portals. The proposal volumes are too long to write by hand at any scale, and the financial compliance regime is unforgiving, which is exactly why the small businesses that win consistently aren't necessarily the ones with the best technical chops. They're the ones with the right software stack, set up correctly, used daily. We're going to walk through the actual tools that successful federal small businesses use across three buckets: finding opportunities, writing proposals, and executing the contracts you win. The goal isn't to hand you a wish list, it's to give you a clear picture of which tool you should be using right now, given where your business actually is. Let's start with the stakes because they're easy to underestimate. The federal market is over $700 billion a year, and almost a quarter of that is statutorily reserved for small businesses. That's the prize. But the gap between the firms that win that work and the firms that try is enormous, and it usually has nothing to do with the quality of the work they could deliver. It has to do with the operational discipline of how they pursue it. Without the right tools, you're hand-searching agency portals every morning, scrambling to keep SAM, Gov current, guessing at pricing because you don't know what similar contracts actually awarded for, and writing proposals from scratch under time pressure that almost guarantees a mediocre result. With the right stack, every one of those becomes either automated or amplified. Alerts find you, compliance maintains itself, pricing has historical data behind it, and proposal content is reused intelligently. The numbers most contractors report are real: 10 to 20 hours per week back and a measurable bump in win rate. That's not marketing. That's the difference between hobby contracting and a real federal practice. SamGov is the floor, and you cannot operate without it. It's where every federal RFP, RFQ, and IFB gets posted. It's where your business has to be registered before any award is even legal, and it's free. The interface is famously unfriendly, but the data is the data. Set up email alerts the day you register, filter by your NAICS codes, and check it daily. That alone puts you ahead of most pre-revenue federal contractors. Now here's where small businesses split into two camps. The ones who stay at the hobby tier rely on SAM. Gov alone forever. The ones who get serious add a paid intelligence layer, and HireGov is the most accessible option in that category. What HireGov does that SAM Gov doesn't. It ranks and scores opportunities for you. It shows you the actual award history of contracts in your space. Who won, for how much, on what vehicle. And it surfaces recompete alerts when an existing contract is about to expire. That last one is the real money. Knowing that a competitor's 3-year IT services contract is up in 9 months gives you 9 months to position. The honest rule of thumb: if you're bidding fewer than 5 opportunities a quarter, stay free. If you're bidding more than that, the paid layer pays for itself in opportunities you would have otherwise missed. Here's a habit that separates serious federal contractors from amateurs. Before you write a single sentence of a proposal, you spend 2 to 4 hours on USA Spending and FPDS. Both are free, both are official, and both contain the answer to the question that determines whether your proposal is competitive. What does this kind of work actually award for, and who tends to win it? US Spending shows you the money. You can filter by NAICS code, by agency, by year, and see exactly where federal dollars flow in your category. That tells you which agencies to chase and which to ignore. It also tells you the realistic dollar range of awards in your space, which is how you avoid the 2 pricing mistakes everyone makes: overpricing yourself out of contention or underpricing into a contract you can't profitably deliver. FPDS is the more granular database managed by GSA. It gives you contract level details: PSC codes, competition type, whether the work was set aside, whether it was awarded sole source. That's how you spot patterns. Like an agency that consistently awards sole source to 8A firms in your category, or a buying office that bunches its awards in the last 6 weeks of the fiscal year. Both tools take some patience to learn, but the alternative is bidding blind, and bidding blind is how you lose money in federal contracting. At a certain point in your growth, the free tools stop being enough. Not because the data is wrong, but because the lag is too long. By the time an opportunity is on SAM, Gov, every serious competitor has it too, and the smart firms have been positioning around it for months. That's the gap GovWinIQ and Bloomberg Government fill. GovWinIQ is built by Dell Tech, and it works essentially like a sales CRM for federal opportunities. The headline feature is 18 to 24-month pipeline forecasting. It tracks programs in their planning phase before solicitations are written, so you can identify decision makers, position your firm, and even influence requirements through capability briefings. It also profiles your competitors in detail, their win rates, the agencies they dominate, the partners they team with. Bloomberg Government is a different animal. It's policy intelligence. It tracks congressional budgets, legislative shifts, and the funding decisions that determine which agencies get to spend on what. If you're in defense, health, or IT, where policy directly shapes procurement, BGOV gives you signals weeks or months ahead of the spending changes themselves. The honest framing on cost. These tools are expensive, often tens of thousands a year, and they don't make sense until you're bidding on million-dollar plus opportunities. But once you're there, the ROI math becomes obvious. One additional win pays for years of subscription. Most firms regret subscribing too late, not too early. Proposal writing is where time goes to die in federal contracting. A medium complexity proposal can eat 3 weeks of your team's attention, and most of that time is spent rewriting answers to questions you've answered before, past performance summaries, capability statements, security postures, methodology descriptions. The point of a content library tool like Lupio or Responsive is to never write the same answer twice. You build a library of approved, tagged content once, and then on every subsequent proposal, the tool surfaces the right answer based on the question being asked. The reported time savings, 30 to 50%, are real, and they compound. You're not just faster, you're also more consistent across proposals, which makes you more compliant and harder for evaluators to ding for inconsistency. Lupio is the workhorse and tends to fit teams of 3 to 20 doing 10 to 50 proposals a year. Responsive is heavier and built for organizations running 20-plus concurrent proposals across multiple teams. It has SME request workflows, version control across reviewers, and an actual compliance matrix builder for Section L and M. A practical warning, these tools are only as good as your library. If you dump messy, off-brand content in, you'll get messy, off-brand proposals out, just faster. The first 30 days with one of these platforms should be ruthlessly spent curating the foundation. Once that library is clean, the leverage is enormous, but the leverage requires discipline up front. Financial compliance is where most federal contractors get themselves into expensive trouble, and yet it's the layer founders most often skip past. There's a clean dividing line worth memorizing. If you're under $1 million in federal revenue and you're working fixed price contracts only, QuickBooks is enough. It's cheap, you probably already know it, and it'll handle invoicing fine. The moment you win your first cost reimbursable contract, or the moment a DCAA audit starts looking plausible, QuickBooks stops being adequate and you need a government contracting ERP. UNEN GovCon is the most common choice. What it does that QuickBooks can't: DCAA compliant timekeeping with audit trails, automated indirect rate calculations for fringe, overhead, and G&A, and multi-contract billing across T&M, fixed price, and cost plus simultaneously. The reason this matters is that the government will audit your books, and if your timekeeping or your indirect rates aren't compliant, you can lose contracts, lose payment, and in extreme cases, lose your ability to bid future federal work entirely. The mistake firms make is waiting too long to switch. They win the cost reimbursable contract, then realize QuickBooks can't handle it, then scramble to migrate systems while running active work. The clean play is to transition before you need to. Once you're actively pursuing your first cost reimbursable opportunity, start the Uninet implementation. Doing it under pressure costs 3 times what doing it ahead of time does. Once you've won the contract, the work doesn't slow down. It changes shape. You're now juggling deliverables, CLIN numbers, period of performance dates, subcontractor coordination, and the looming reality that your CPARS rating is being formed in real time. Most small contractors try to manage all of this in spreadsheets and email, and most of them eventually get burned by a missed milestone that should have been obvious. Asana and Monday are the 2 project management tools that fit the federal contracting workflow well. Asana is better for teams that like structure, Gantt timelines, portfolio views across multiple contracts, custom fields you can map directly to CLIN numbers, and pop dates. Monday is better for visual thinkers. Board-style layouts, executive dashboards, and the kind of flexible customization that lets you build exactly what you need without engineering help. Neither is government-specific, which is actually a feature. They're mature, they integrate with everything, and your team probably already knows one of them. The thing to optimize for here isn't elegance, it's milestone visibility. The deliverables that ding your CPARs aren't the impossible ones. They're the ones you forgot about because they were buried in a 40-page contract. Whichever tool you pick, build the project plan the day the contract is awarded, set the automated reminders, and don't let a missed milestone be the reason you lose the recompete. DocuSign is a small line in the budget that prevents disproportionately large problems. The use cases in federal contracting are everywhere. Teaming agreements with primes, subcontracts with your subs, contract modifications, non-disclosure agreements, certifications. All of it needs signatures. All of it needs an audit trail, and all of it tends to bottleneck right when speed matters most. The reason DocuSign specifically is worth calling out is the FedRAMP authorization. There are plenty of e-signature tools out there, but if you're working with controlled, unclassified information or sensitive agency data, the FedRAMP stamp is what makes the tool legally acceptable for federal documentation. The audit trail, timestamps, device, IP is also exactly what DCAA wants to see if your contract files ever get reviewed. The practical impact for a small business is the timing. Teaming agreements that used to take a week of printing, scanning, mailing, and re-signing now close in a few hours. When an RFP drops on a Thursday and you need a signed teaming agreement by Monday morning, that compression is the difference between submitting and not submitting. It's not a glamorous tool, but the absence of it is the kind of thing that quietly kills pursuits. Stage 1 is where most small businesses overbuy software and underuse it. Here's the honest playbook for under $500,000 in revenue. The free tier handles 80% of what you need at this stage. And that's not a knock, it's a feature. SAM, Gov for registration and opportunity search, USA spending, and FPDS for market research, and you've covered the discovery layer for $0. The paid layer at this stage is small and strategic. QuickBooks for accounting, somewhere in the $30 to $200 a month range, which most firms already have. Asana or Monday for project management, 10 to 25 per user. DocuSign for signatures, 15 to 40 per user. Total monthly spend lands somewhere around $100 to $300, and you save 5 to 8 hours a week that you used to spend in spreadsheets and email threads. The strategic priority at this stage is not winning huge contracts. It's building the operational foundation that lets you respond credibly to small opportunities. Micro purchases, simplified acquisitions, subcontracts to primes, those are the right targets at stage 1, and the goal is to build a clean past performance record that opens up stage 2. The mistake to avoid is jumping ahead. You don't need GovWin IQ at this stage. You need to win 3 small contracts cleanly and earn good CPARS scores. The software stack is calibrated to that goal, nothing more. Stage 2 is where the math of software starts to flip on you in a good way. Once you're between $500,000 and $5 million in revenue, the cost of missing an opportunity exceeds the cost of subscribing to better tools, and your investment in software starts to compound. The monthly spend bumps to roughly $1,000 to $3,000, but the time savings jump too, 15 to 20 hours a week back across your team, and contractors at this stage typically report a 20 to 40% improvement in win rate after they get their stack in place. What changes at stage 2 is that you add an opportunity intelligence layer on top of SAM. Gov or Higher Gov is the most common entry point. It pays for itself when it surfaces one recompete you would have missed. You add a proposal content library, usually Laupio, which lets you respond to more RFPs without proportionally increasing headcount. And on the financial side, if you've started winning cost reimbursable work, this is the stage where you should be transitioning from QuickBooks to Uninet GovCon. The trap at stage 2 is the temptation to overinvest in enterprise tools you're not ready for. Bloomberg Government and the full GovWin IQ suite are real money, and at this revenue band, they often don't pay back yet. Stage 2 is about scaling the discipline you built in stage 1, not skipping ahead to stage 3 capabilities. At 5 million in revenue and above, the math changes again. The opportunities you're competing for are large enough that pipeline intelligence 12 to 24 months out becomes the actual differentiator, and the cost of the enterprise tools, 5 to 15,000 a month is the realistic range, is small compared to a single mid-size win. 3 platforms anchor the stage 3 stack. GovWin IQ for pipeline, pre-solicitation tracking, decision maker identification, competitor profiling, and the ability to position around a recompete before SAM. Gov even has it posted. Bloomberg Government for Policy, especially critical if you're in defense, health, or IT, where legislative shifts move budgets in real time. And responsive for proposals because at stage 3, you're probably running 20 or more concurrent bids across multiple teams, and a lighter content library starts to feel constrained. The 30 plus hours a week of time savings at this stage isn't really about labor cost, it's about capacity. Every hour of senior pursuit time you free up is an hour spent on capture, partnerships, or strategy that translates directly to additional wins. The framing to hold. At stage 3, software is no longer overhead. It's a force multiplier on your most expensive employees. The mistake at this stage is fragmentation, running 3 pipeline tools because nobody made a call. Pick the stack, integrate it through Salesforce or a similar layer, and make sure every team is operating from the same intelligence. Coherence beats coverage. If you remember nothing else from this deck, remember the thread that runs through these 8 principles. Discipline beats heroics in federal contracting. The contractors who win consistently are not the ones with the most charismatic salespeople or the flashiest technology. They're the ones who built operational systems that let them find more opportunities, respond to them faster, and execute the resulting work cleanly enough to earn recompetes. Software is the cheapest part of that discipline. Notice how the 8 principles are sequenced. The first cluster is about positioning. Software as a competitive weapon, free tools as the foundation, eliminating manual work. Those build the platform. The middle cluster is about pursuit. Proposal tools, pipeline intelligence, financial compliance. Those win the work. The last cluster is about execution, protecting CPARs, matching the stack to the stage. Those keep the work and let you grow. Each layer depends on the one before it. The most useful question to ask yourself as a founder isn't which of these tools is the best. It's which layer is currently your weakest. If your proposal output is the bottleneck, that's where the next dollar of software spend goes. If positioning is where you're losing, that's where it goes. The temptation in federal contracting is to copy what the bigger firms have. The discipline is to invest in your weakest link first because every chain breaks at the weakest link, and federal evaluators are unusually good at finding it. One thing to take with you, if I had to compress the whole deck into a single sentence: a disciplined software stack is how small businesses compete and win in the federal market. Not how they look impressive, how they actually win. The numbers are real and worth restating. 10 to 30 hours a week back, which for a founder is the difference between strategic work and reactive firefighting. 20 to 40% improvement in win rate, which is the difference between marginal and viable. And the path forward is stage appropriate. You don't need everything today. You need the right things for where you are right now. Start free, build the discipline, scale the stack as the revenue grows. The federal market rewards patience and operational rigor in ways the commercial market often doesn't. Build the stack, run the playbook, and the wins compound. That's the entire game.